a 10-year-old child by the name of Joseph Hall, who is being tried for murdering his father. Now, his father is a neo-Nazi, and 2 years ago, Jeff Hall was laying on his couch when his 10-year-old son, Joseph, grabbed a gun and shot him and killed him. So the mother called 911, the boy was immediately arrested and was in custody, and the trial is going to start now. And a lot of questions are coming up about child abuse because his father was the West Coast leader of the National Socialist Movement. He was a very, very active member of the neo-Nazi community. And, you know, it turns out that some psychologists say that the boy suffered from psychological issues. He was somewhat physically abused. He was definitely psychologically abused, they say. But his father did kick him in the butt, literally, and, you know, use some forms of physical punishment. So
he'd been spanked the night before.
Right.
And so some say the virulent racism, according to the New York Times, can amount to parental abuse. That's what some people are claiming. And a child exposed to such hate might not know the difference between right and wrong, which is interesting. And that such toxic circumstance, again, according to the New York Times, people are saying, well, can a child be blamed for wanting a way out of those toxic circumstances? Now, his dad is, well, dead, but left in an ironic situation because what are the Nazis best known for? Indiscriminate murder. So if your son indiscriminately kills you, aren't you a little proud as a neo-Nazi?
Well, a few details to this story that I think are important. First of all, the father taught his son how to use a gun, and he would, and he would go around and brag about it. He's like, "Oh, I taught my son how to use a gun. How awesome is that?"
Turns out, not so awesome.
Another thing is, obviously, the gun was in a place where the child had easy access to it. It was like in a closet on like the bottom shelf, so he easily accessed it and, you know, did what he did. And then another thing is, while they would have these neo-Nazi meetings, this 10-year-old kid, I mean, I'm sure it started much earlier than when he was 10, but he would sit in and listen to it. So if you have people preaching this type of violence and hate, would you be surprised if this kid got brainwashed, right, into thinking that this is acceptable behavior?
I think that's their best argument, to say, hey, he didn't know the difference between right and wrong because his father kept teaching him all these things that were wrong, you know? And look, the Nazis killed 13 million civilians. And if you teach them that those are the right guys and he winds up killing a civilian, well, you know, one could argue you had it coming. Now, nonetheless, I would not accept any of those excuses. And so it's an interesting question, but if I was the judge, I would definitely send him to jail. And we got to set the right precedent here. And it doesn't mean you put him away for life. It doesn't mean you try him as an adult. No. But I would put him in juvenile detention until the age of 23, which is as far as he can go in this state, okay?
Right.
And
I mean, that would, even though it's not life behind bars, it would easily destroy the rest of his life.
No, look, you can make that argument, but the other argument is whether we disagreed with that guy or not, you know, and obviously we massively do since he's a neo-Nazi, doesn't give you the right to kill him. And I know he's a 10-year-old kid, right? But at the same time, we can't have 10-year-old kids shooting their dads in the face no matter who they are.
I know, but why is it that every time a kid does something as hideous as this, the two options are you let them go free or you put them behind bars? How about some sort of psychological treatment, right, for a special, like a certain period of time, and as soon as mental health professionals have deemed him, you know, safe for society, we allow him to be part of society. I don't like the idea of just saying, we're going to toss him into juvenile hall until he's 23. That's the maximum punishment, by the way. Of course, after he's 18, he'll be sent to prison.
Now, look, I sympathize with what you're saying, and as I was reading the story, I was thinking, man, I hope they got some sort of psychological counseling at the juvenile treatment center. Maybe I'm being naive there, etc. But at the same time, this kid has a history of violence. He did an attack that involved wrapping a telephone cord around a teacher's neck. And I forget if it was a prosecutor or someone else, but they made a good point. They're like, okay, you want to put him in your home while he's getting counseling? Oh, hell no.
I know, but look, you're also not, you know, describing his past, because another thing to keep in mind is he is the son of a previous marriage, and that marriage was so bad. I mean, his mother was so violent and so bad that the father got full custody of him. So he came from a terrible, childhood, terrible household, and he has never been taught the difference between right or wrong. He needs the psychological treatment. What I know is that when you put kids into the juvenile detention center, what happens is they become hardened criminals, and I know at this point he's already a violent individual, so I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but I don't think putting him in a juvenile detention center is going to help him.
You make a good case. You still have not swung me. I can't have a 10-year-old shooting his father and killing him. So and maybe I'm cold-hearted, but I vote no. I vote he goes to prison until 23.